If I had driven to that hotel, my life would have exploded in one loud, reckless moment. Demdi, instead, I detonated it quietly. The text came at R, T P M, unknown number, no name, no profile picture. Bland, just one sentence. Your wife is at the Hilton downtown. Room 804, right now. Munya. I was sitting in my work truck at a red light when it came through. The radio was playing low. There was dust on my boots and a blueprint folder on the passenger seat. It was an ordinary Tuesday. Believed. Until it wasn't. Claire had told me she was at a leadership retreat 2 hours outside the city. Some corporate bonding thing. She'd kissed Emma goodbye that morning. Told me not to wait up. The Hilton downtown was 12 minutes from our house. 12. Lands, my stomach dropped so hard it felt physical, like something inside me had just cracked open. I read the message again, then again. I checked the number. Nothing. No emojis. No threats. No explanation. Just information. You ever notice how the truth doesn't shout? It doesn't need to. My first instinct was violence. Not physical violence, but confrontation, explosion, door kicking, yelling, dragging someone out by their collar. Beans. That's what most people would do. That's what she expected me to do. That's why I didn't. Manager is predictable, and predictable men are easy to defeat. So I did something she would never see coming. When I opened my contacts, I started adding names, her parents, my parents, her boss, her entire department, our pastor, and her book club, the PTA group, her sorority sisters, neighbors, and then, carefully, intentionally, one more person. Benjamin Holloway's ex-wife. I had her number saved for weeks. Dan, by the time I finished, there were 47 people in that group chat, 47 witnesses. 47 perspectives. Men 47 consequences. I copied the message, pasted it, and typed one line above it. Thought everyone should see this. Boom. Then I hit send, turned off my phone, and I drove away from the hotel. Because the most powerful move in a confrontation isn't showing up. It's letting the truth show up for you. Mumdeers for 3 hours. I sat in a coffee shop across town. Black coffee. No sugar. Muted. I stared out the window while traffic moved like nothing. And the world had changed. But mine had. Menace. You see, that text wasn't the beginning, it was the confirmation. 8 months earlier, something had already started unraveling. I just didn't want to admit it. Claire used to call me stable. She meant boring. I'm 39 years old, senior project manager, steel-toed boots, Ford F e-bike Worsers, lunchbox in the passenger seat, routine. Dim consistency. I thought that was what marriage needed. Turns out, to her, it felt like a cage. Jamient. The signs had been there. A new perfume that wasn't for date nights, gym sessions that lasted 3 hours, bend phone screen angled away from me on the couch, more late meetings, more team retreats. I noticed, but I chose trust. Blamed, because once you let suspicion in, it never leaves quietly. Then one afternoon, I came home early. Migraine. Sun too strong on sight. It was RPM. I walked in quietly, and I heard a man's voice upstairs. Comfortable, comfortable. Jammed, intimate. My heart didn't race. It slowed. That's how shock works. The bedroom door was cracked open. Ben de Claire was sitting on our bed, laptop open. On the screen, a man leaned back in a chair, jacket off, tie loosened, smiling like he owned something. I can't wait until next week, Claire said. Her voice wasn't professional. It wasn't friendly. It was warm, private. I know, he said. This sneaking around is half the thrill. That's when I pushed the door open. Her face drained of color. The screen went black instantly. Who was that? I asked. Work, she said too fast. What's his name, She hesitated. Evan. Evan Holloway, VP of Sales, diverse, Tesla, designer suits, everything I wasn't. Binge, she swore it was innocent. I didn't argue. But that night, when she fell asleep, I checked her phone, and I found 8 months of messages, hotel reservations, photos in robes. I'm falling for you. I'll leave him soon. And 8 months of planning a life without me while sleeping next to me every night. The end. That's when something inside me changed. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't confront. I started calculating. And because betrayal feels emotional, but survival is strategic. And when that anonymous text arrived weeks later, Blaine's, it didn't shock me. It confirmed what I already knew. Blaine's, the only question left was this. Would I confront them privately? Or would I let the truth arrive publicly? I chose public. and what happened next was louder than any door I could have kicked down. I didn't expose her the day I found the messages. That's the part most people don't understand. Bands. They think betrayal demands an immediate explosion. Screaming, accusations, plates breaking against kitchen walls. But exposure without preparation is just emotional suicide. Lemmed, the night I discovered the 8 months of messages, Claire was asleep upstairs. Our daughter Emma was down the hall with her nightlight glowing faint blue under the door. And I was sitting alone on the couch, scrolling through proof that my marriage had been dead longer than I realized. Lemmed, there were hundreds of messages, not just flirting, floating, coordination, hotel confirmations. Memmed photos of her in a white robe I'd bought her for Christmas. Bam to him shirtless in what looked like the same room. Bob Eitling C. Always Bob Eitling C. Pattern don't lie. People do. Me and I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every date, every image. Means I uploaded them to a private cloud folder she didn't know existed. Bands. Then I put her phone back exactly where she left it. Blands. When she came downstairs later, she smiled like nothing in the world had shifted. "Headache better?" she asked. Yeah, I said calmly. She kissed the top of my head. That was the moment I realized something important. And she wasn't afraid of getting caught. She was confident she wouldn't. That confidence is what destroyed her. And the next morning, instead of confronting her, I called in sick. Then I called a divorce attorney. Ben Richard Moss had a reputation for being cold and surgical. The kind of man who didn't blink when you told him your life was falling apart. I showed him everything. Man, he didn't react emotionally. He didn't shake his head. He simply asked, "Does she know? You know? You know? You know?" No. Good. Good. And good. That word stuck with me. Right now, he said, you have leverage. The second she knows you have this evidence, she'll prepare. She'll shift assets. She'll create a narrative. She'll become the victim. That word made my jaw tighten. Dan, North Carolina is a no-fault state, he continued, but adultery still matters, especially when documented, especially when public. Mirrors, I didn't tell him what I was thinking yet. He leaned back in his chair. If you're going to move with precision. Not emotion, that word again, precision. And I left his office not broken, not raging, focused. For 3 weeks, I became an actor in my own home. Dinner together, family movie nights, helping Emma with homework, kissing Claire goodbye in the morning. Bland and quietly building a case at night. I installed a GPS tracker on her car. Legal, since we company owned it. Bangs. The first time I checked it, my hands shook. Lane, the little blue dot was parked exactly where I already knew it would be. Hilton downtown. R. Sursan P. M. Dean, 3 hours later, it moved. Back home. She walked through the door at low, cheapy than M, smiling. How was work? She asked. Busy, I replied. Rehearsed lies sound very similar to natural conversation. That's what makes them dangerous. Dem, the next week. Same pattern. Team lunch. Hilton. Late strategy meeting. Hilton. Girls' night. Hilton. Always between. Isand. U P to M. Demja always room. Bobatling C. Patterns create predictability. Predictability creates vulnerability. That's when I hired a private investigator. Marcus was former law enforcement, quiet, efficient, didn't waste words. I gave him dates, times, location. He returned with photos. Band, Claire walking into the Hilton lobby. Evan arriving 7 minutes later. Hand resting on her lower back. Dem a kiss in the parking garage. Evidence doesn't shout either. It just exists. Do you want me to keep going? Marcus asked. No, I said. This wasn't about humiliation. It was about certainty. And now I had it. Blaine's by the end of those 3 weeks. I wasn't wondering anymore. I wasn't guessing. I knew. Temiand. Which is why when the anonymous text came, it didn't devastate me. It activated me. Been your wife is at the Hilton downtown, room, Babailing Su. Right now. Blands. Whoever sent it thought they were dropping a bomb into my life. Miend. They didn't realize the explosion had already been mapped out. I checked the GPS. There it was, blue dot. Deems Penning Garage, room, Babetling C, active. I sat there in my truck and asked myself one question. If I go there alone, what changes? She denies, he lies. I yell, police get called, video ends up online, narrative becomes, husband loses control. Beant, and suddenly I'm the unstable one. No, that wasn't happening. Dant, because the most dangerous man in a betrayal isn't the one who reacts. It's the one who waits. Thence I opened my contacts, started adding names, one by one. I didn't rush. Every name had purpose. Her father. Authority. Lands, her mother. Emotional weight, her boss. Professional consequence, her department. Workplace exposure, our pastor. Moral accountability, her friends. Social collapse. Glimpse the PTA. Community judgment. And finally, Monica, Evan's ex-wife. I'd contacted her quietly a week earlier, told her everything. She didn't hesitate. That bastard, she'd replied. Let me know when. Now was when. 47 people. 47 witnesses. Because secrets survive in silence. Memed. But they suffocate in daylight. I typed one line, thought everyone should see this. Attached the anonymous message. And hit send. Then I turned off my phone because the next 3 hours were going to change everything. And this time I was going to be the one standing outside the door. Mindy, I was going to let the door open on its own when I turned my phone off. It wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate. Because once you release the truth into a room full of people, you don't need to manage it. You just need to step back and let it breathe. I didn't drive toward the Hilton. I drove away from it. That's the part that still surprises people. They imagine me hiding in the parking garage, waiting, watching. No, I went to a coffee shop across town, sat by the window, ordered black coffee, and waited. And you learn a lot about yourself in silence. At first, there was adrenaline. My pulse felt steady but sharp, like I was standing on the edge of something irreversible. Then came the doubt. Blamed. What if the text was wrong? What if she wasn't there? Blamed. What if I just detonated my entire marriage based on a lie? That thought lasted about 30 seconds. Ben, because I already knew the pattern. Room, Bob at Ling C between 1 and 5. Every time at C, sensor P.M. Okay, I turned my phone back on. It vibrated instantly. Missed calls stacked on top of each other. Her name. Jean, her mother, her father, her boss, unknown numbers, dozens of messages. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I called Marcus. You at the Hilton? I asked. He let out a short breath. You're not going to believe this. Try me. There are at least 30 people in the lobby. Older couple arguing with the front desk. Woman in heels yelling at a guy in a gray suit. Some pastor-looking guy trying to calm people down. This is chaos. Her parents, her boss, Reverend Mike. And? I asked, and security just let a group go up to the 8th floor. I closed my eyes for a second. Bammed. The elevator ride to the 8th floor must have been suffocating, her father. Silent fury, her mother. Shaking, her boss. Calculating liability, Monica. Focused, because Monica didn't come for drama. She came for confirmation. Call me when they come down, I said. I ended the call and finally opened the group chat. Hundreds of messages. Claire, Nathan, what are you doing? This is insane. Call me right now, her mother. We are at the Hilton. Please answer. Her boss, mister. Cross, this needs to be handled privately. Monica, I'm in the lobby. If this is true, he's done. And then a message from Claire. You're destroying our family. No. Baint, you did that 8 months ago. At lokrp.m. Marcus called again. They're coming down. Describe it. Ben's your wife looks like she's been crying for hours. Her father is furious. The guy, Evan, looks like he wants to disappear, and that woman, Monica, she just blocked his path in the lobby. I could almost see it. Even trying to control the situation. Landeclaire trying to explain, her father demanding answers, Monica stepping forward with something in her hand. Meant that Monica just showed them something on her phone, Marcus said. I smiled slightly. Leander Monica had sent me copies of Evan's divorce documents weeks ago. He had cheated on her with a coworker 3 years earlier. History doesn't repeat itself. People do. Bleens. She just said something about reopening alimony, Marcus added. There it was. Consequences don't scream. They accumulate. The lobby must have felt like a courtroom, except no judge, no lawyers, just truth colliding with reputation. Do you want pictures? Marcus asked. Yes, seconds. Later, they came through. Claire, standing in the center of a half-circle of people, tears running down her face. Her boss's expression wasn't sympathetic, it was furious. Evan looked smaller than I imagined. Because men who operate in secrecy don't function well in light. I leaned back in my chair. And for the first time in months, I felt calm, not victorious, not vengeful, balanced. Because this wasn't about humiliating her. It was about removing her ability to control the story. Me, a mayor's, affairs survive on narrative manipulation. I was lonely. He ignored me. We grew apart. To Lens. But when 47 people receive the same information at the same time, there's no room left to twist it. At P.M. Another message came in from her boss. An effective immediately, Mr. Holloway has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Professional consequence. At P.M. Monica texted privately. When he just tried to deny it, I showed everyone the hotel receipts from our divorce. Same pattern. Same hotel chain. Same lies, I didn't reply. Because the truth doesn't require commentary, when I finally drove home, the house was empty. Claire had gone to her parents. Emma was with my sister. The silence inside the house felt different, not heavy. Demg cleared. I walked into the kitchen and sat at the table. Domildas, the same table where we'd eaten dinner together the night before. Blands, the same table where she'd smiled and asked about my day. And I realized something important. Mean if I had confronted her alone in that room, she would have lied, she would have minimized. Tambia, she would have negotiated. Instead, she had to answer to everyone. And that changes everything. At Joel, Sen Pita M. You can't. My phone rang. Richard. Well, he said calmly, you made an impact. You heard? Oh, yes. I got a call from her attorney already. That was fast. She wants to settle, he continued. Clean split. No alimony. 50-50 custody. Just like that. 3 weeks of silence. One message, and the leverage shifted completely. Do we accept? He asked. I looked around the empty house, at the quiet, at the absence of tension. Yes, I said. Banned, because once exposure happens, there's no going back to pretending. But what happened next, Bede, is the part no one sees coming, because public exposure is only the beginning. The real test? Layons. What happens after the noise fades? Winning doesn't feel the way people think it does. Mance. There's no music playing in the background, no slow-motion victory walk, just paperwork, silence. And the weight of something ending for good. 2 days after the Hilton exploded, Claire asked to meet. Dead. Not to argue, not to scream, to talk. We met in a conference room at her attorney's office. Neutral ground. Fluorescent lighting, cold chairs, a long wooden table separating us like a border that had already been drawn. She looked smaller. A Binge not physically, emotionally, eyes red, shoulders tight, hair pulled back without care. Lengia, for the first time in months, she wasn't composed. I didn't think you'd do something like that, she said quietly. That's the point, I replied. Silence stretched between us. Blend, you humiliated me, she said. No, I said calmly. I removed your cover. Cover? She flinched. You could have talked to me. Bean, I tried, I said. 8 months ago. Her jaw tightened. It wasn't what you think. There it was. Memmed the narrative shift, the softening, the reframing. Affairs don't start with lies to the spouse. Dan's. They start with lies to yourself. You booked the room, I said evenly. You planned the meetings. You told him you were falling for him. She looked down. I felt invisible, she said. And for a moment I studied her face. This woman had been my partner for 12 years. The mother of my daughter, the person I thought I knew better than anyone, invisible, I repeated. You saw the routine, she said, the schedule, the responsibilities. You didn't see me. Men do. I saw you every day, I said quietly. No, she said. You saw the version that worked for you. Mean that one hit. Because there's always a fraction of truth inside every excuse. But truth doesn't cancel betrayal. I didn't deserve that, I said. Emma didn't deserve that. Her eyes filled again. I never meant to hurt Emma. Emma. Intent doesn't erase impact. That's something people learn too late. Her attorney slid papers across the table. Clean split. No alimony, shared custody, asset division already negotiated. She wanted this over fast. Because public exposure changes leverage. In court, affairs become evidence, evidence becomes headlines, headlines become reputation damage. And she couldn't afford that. "Ben, do you hate me?" she asked suddenly. I paused. No. I said honestly, I don't hate you. She looked surprised. But I don't trust you, I continued. And without trust, there's nothing left to protect. Her breathing slowed. I didn't think you'd fight like this, she whispered. I didn't think you'd cheat, I replied. Another silence. You heavier this time. We signed, just like that. 12 years compressed into ink on paper. Lens. But here's what people don't tell you about exposure. The public storm lasts a week, and the private consequences last much longer. Within a month, Evan was terminated. Internal investigation confirmed policy violations. Landa Monica reopened her alimony case. History is expensive when it repeats itself. Claire resigned before the investigation could finish. Damned a hostile work environment, she told people. But she knew, everyone knew. Social circles shifted. Some friends distanced themselves from her. Jen some from me, because exposure makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to examine their own lives. Dimmed, 3 months later, we settled into a new rhythm. Emma stayed with me during the week. Claire had weekends. Means. Transitions were awkward at first. Polite exchanges in the driveway. No eye contact. Minimal conversation. One evening, as I buckled Emma into the car after a handoff, she looked at me and asked something I wasn't prepared for. Jane, Dad, are you mad at Mom forever? Kids don't understand betrayal. They understand tension. I crouched down to her level. I'm not mad forever, I said. Then why don't you live together? Because some breaks can't be repaired without cutting deeper. Sometimes, I said carefully. When trust breaks, it changes things permanently. Lane. She nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that hit harder than any argument. Are we still a family? I swallowed. Oh, yes, I said firmly. Just a different kind. Because here's the part no one talks about. Meaned exposure isn't just about punishment. It's about clarity. It removes confusion. It removes false hope. It removes the illusion that things can quietly return to normal. They can't, and they shouldn't. But just when I thought the dust had settled, something unexpected happened. 6 months after the divorce, I received another message from an unknown number. Meaned, I'm the one who told you about the Hilton. I stared at the screen. Why? I typed back. A minute passed. And then, because someone needed to. No name, no explanation. Just that. And suddenly, I realized something. Leans. That first text didn't destroy my marriage. It ended the illusion of it. But the real transformation? Bans. That came afterward. Because once you expose the truth, you have to rebuild yourself in it. And that part? Chinis. That's where the real story begins. Mongol, the strange thing about rebuilding your life is that it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels ordinary, And ordinary is harder than chaos. 6 months after the divorce, there were no more group chats. No more missed calls. No more gossip blog posts floating around town. Just routine. Emma's soccer practices. Work deadlines. Quiet evenings in a house that felt bigger than it used to. At first, the silence was loud. Glance. Every empty chair at the dinner table felt like a reminder. Lane's every unused coffee mug in the cabinet felt like a ghost. But something unexpected happened. The tension disappeared. Plens, there were no hidden phones lighting up at night. No unexplained late meetings. No subtle distance sitting between us on the couch. Peace isn't exciting, but it's powerful. Planned one Saturday morning at a soccer game. I met Sarah. Man, she was standing on the sidelines, coffee in one hand, folding chair in the other. Her son played defense. Emma played midfield. Lanes, we started talking the way parents do, about schedules, about how expensive cleats are, about how weekends disappear once you have kids. It was easy. That's what caught me off guard. There was no performance, no angle, no secret undercurrent. Just conversation. A few weeks later, she said something that made me pause. You're the guy, right? What guy? I asked. The Hilton guy. I winced slightly, so it did get around, she smiled. You'd be surprised how many people admired that. Admired? You. You didn't lose control, she said. You took it back. And that stuck with me, because the narrative most people expected was rage. But restraint? Gen restraint unsettles people more than anger ever could. We started getting coffee after games, then dinner. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Band, just two people who had both survived something. She'd been divorced 3 years earlier. Different story. Same lesson. Being trust isn't assumed, it's earned. Bien. One evening, Emma looked at me while we were watching a movie and said, You smile more now. And the kids notice everything. I do? I asked. Yeah. Before, you looked tired. Blands that hit deeper than any argument in a conference room, because maybe I had been tired. Being tired of pretending things were fine. Tired of ignoring the quiet distance growing in my own house. Demand. Tired of being stable while something unstable was forming behind my back. Exposure didn't just change Claire's life. Man, it forced me to look at mine. Where had I stopped paying attention? Where had routine replaced connection? Jand. That doesn't excuse betrayal, but it explains growth. Been a year after the Hilton incident, I ran into Claire at a school fundraiser. She looked different. Whitor, and less sharp around the edges. We exchanged polite words. How are you? She asked. Good, I said honestly. And are you happy? I thought about that for a moment. Happiness isn't fireworks, it's alignment. I'm steady, I said. And she nodded slowly. I underestimated you, she admitted. I know, I replied. There was no anger in my voice, no sarcasm. Just fact, because here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Cheating isn't just about passion. It's about miscalculation. She miscalculated who I was. She thought I was predictable because I was weak. And she didn't realize I was deliberate, and deliberate people don't explode, they execute. Bane later that night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked one more question. Dad, if someone lies to you, should you always tell everyone? I paused. Mendist. That was a heavy question from a 10-year-old. No, I said carefully. Not always. Then why did you? Because silence protects the wrong person. Beamed. Sometimes, I explained, if someone builds a lie big enough to hurt everyone around them, the only way to stop it is to let the truth be bigger. Bane, she thought about that, then nodded. Truth wins, she said softly. I smiled. Truth doesn't always feel good. Meandy. It doesn't always look clean, but it restores balance. The anonymous number never texted again. I never found out who sent that first message. Maybe it was someone from her office. Maybe it was a hotel employee. Maybe it was someone who'd been hurt before and didn't want to watch it happen again. It doesn't matter, because that text didn't ruin my life. It redirected it. Denned people still ask me if I regret sending that message to 47 people, if I regret making it public. If I regret the chaos in that lobby. I don't. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to carry a secret that wasn't mine. Secrets are heavy. Especially when you're the only one holding them. Being the day I hit send, I put the weight back where it belonged. And once you do that, Benju, you can finally stand up straight again. I still drive the same truck, still pack my lunch. Manned, still coach soccer on Saturdays. Predictable, but not powerless. Because the difference between a man who reacts, and a man who responds, is timing. If you've ever had to choose between silence and truth, choose truth. Yes. It may shake the room, but it steadies your life. And in the end, that's what actually wins.